Kevin's truck was speeding down the icy road as snow and wind whipped past. The highway was mostly empty due to the bad weather, with only a few brave drivers venturing out. Every so often, a car would zoom by and disappear into the thick snowfall. Kevin smiled as he looked at a picture of his wife, Laura, hanging from the rearview mirror. Christmas was fast approaching, and he was eager to get home to spend the holiday with her. He had been away for nearly 2 months, traveling across the country, and was now returning home with a special present for his beloved wife. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small box. He peeked inside and smiled, seeing the gold necklace he had purchased for Laura still nestled inside, shining brightly against the backdrop of Christmas decorations. After tucking the box back into the glove compartment, Kevin pressed down on the accelerator even harder, and the truck let out a puff of smoke as it zoomed past the snowy trees, headed towards the city. When Kevin arrived at the truck stop, he parked the truck and walked the rest of the way home. As he walked through the familiar streets, he couldn't help but notice how things had changed since he left. Work in the autumn had left people gloomy and grumpy, but now, despite the gray sky, the cold weather, and the continued snowfall, everyone seemed to be smiling and looking at the store windows, adorned with mistletoe, with childlike wonder. As he reached home, Kevin greeted the neighbors who were coming and going. He even helped a young mother carry her baby carriage up to the 3rd floor. Finally, he reached the door of his apartment and pressed the doorbell a few times before hiding behind the wall, eager to surprise Laura. He eagerly anticipated her reaction, rubbing his hands together in excitement. But as time passed, no one came to the door, leaving Kevin confused and concerned. Perplexed and frowning, Kevin checked his pockets for his keys and unlocked the door himself. "Hello, is anyone home?" he called out as he walked into the dark hallway. "I'm home. Surprise, my love." But there was only silence in response. Without taking off his shoes, Kevin made his way through the living room, kitchen, and bedroom, but there was no one there. Dust was settled everywhere, indicating that Laura had not been home for quite some time, possibly a week or more. Growing increasingly worried, Kevin took out his phone to call his wife, but it was dead. Frustrated, he tossed the phone aside and ran to the landline phone on the table, where he found a note next to it. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," he read, the note written by his wife's hand. "I realized I deserved more. I met someone else and have found happiness. I wish you the same. Goodbye." Kevin repeated the last word to himself several times before crumpling up the paper and throwing it against the wall in anger. What does it even mean? He asked himself out loud as he sat down on the couch. There was no answer, only Laura, who was God knows where, knew the answer to Kevin's question. After her, only a few things were left in the apartment and the lingering scent of her perfume from the wardrobe. After some thought, Kevin decided to go to Laura's work, a fast food restaurant where they had met 2 years ago. Back then, Laura had just started working there, having recently moved to the city from a small town. She was still getting used to the city and relied on GPS to get around. It was Kevin who showed her the ropes and helped her navigate the city. They fell in love, got married, and planned to live happily ever after. But now, all that was left of their life together was the crumpled note under the sofa. Kevin quickly got dressed and left his apartment. When he arrived at the restaurant by taxi, he saw Laura getting into a red BMW, the door being held open for her by a well-dressed man. From his large build and bald head, Kevin recognized him as Laura's boss, Sean. He was not a particularly likable person, with various rumors circulating about him. Some said he had been involved in drug trafficking in the past, while others believed he was part of a large criminal organization. Despite the fact that many people both respected and feared him due to his wealth and connections, Sean was not well respected in the city. But that didn't matter at the moment. What was important was the kind of person Laura had chosen to leave her honest and decent husband for. After a moment of hesitation, Kevin ran towards the car, but it was too late. The BMW drove away, leaving Kevin standing in the dirty snow as it disappeared down an alley, taking his wife with it. Cursing, Kevin walked away, pulling his hat over his ears and pulling up his hood. He walked quickly down the sidewalk, pushing past the people in his way. He spent several days drinking, his mind caught between dreams and reality. Sometimes it felt like the front door of the apartment was opening, and Kevin would hurry to the hallway. But when he saw that no one was there, he would sink to the floor in disappointment and hit it with his fist. He even thought he saw Laura looking in through the window, smiling at him, which caused him to almost fall from the 4th floor as he climbed up on the windowsill to open the window. It's unclear how long he would have continued drinking if it weren't for his elderly neighbor downstairs, who had grown tired of all the noise and came to check on Kevin. "Oh, it's you, Mr. Feist," Kevin yawned as he opened the door for his neighbor. "What are you doing up this early?" Kevin asked as Mr. Feist looked at his watch and saw that it was 3:20 on Christmas morning. "Well, I came to wish you a Merry Christmas," he said, as he nonchalantly walked into the apartment. "I see you've been celebrating for a while now," he observed, looking at the bottles littered in the living room. "I'm tired of this," Kevin said shamefacedly and wiped his red face with a t-shirt. "I don't feel like celebrating. Maybe more like mourning," he continued as he let Mr. Feist into the living room. "My wife left me, and I've been drinking. Care to join?" Kevin offered, handing him a glass of whiskey. As the neighbor drank, Kevin sat down on the couch and began telling him the chaotic story of how he and Laura broke up and what she wrote in her note. Without any expectation of getting an answer, Kevin asked Mr. Feist, "Was I making good money?" "Hell yeah, I was. Not as much as her new boyfriend, but not too bad either. Did I take her to Spain? I sure did. Gifts? Tons. I don't know, man. Maybe I did miss something after all. I gave her everything she needed. Or maybe it's because I'm an orphan. Sure, I grew up in an orphanage with no parents, but that's not my fault." Mr. Feist took another glass of whiskey and wiped his mouth with his hand. "That's not it, Kevin," he said firmly. "You did everything right. You just married the wrong person. It happens. Maybe it's not the kind of advice you want to hear, but it's the truth. Your wife made a choice, and it wasn't you. You can sit here and drink yourself to death, or you can get up and do something about it. It's up to you." Kevin looked at his neighbor, his eyes red from drinking and his face pale from exhaustion. He knew Mr. Feist was right. He had to get up and do something about it. He couldn't let Laura's betrayal destroy him. With a newfound determination, Kevin stood up and poured the rest of the whiskey down the drain. "You're right, Mr. Feist," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I can't let this defeat me. I have to move on, for my own sake." With that, Kevin walked into the bedroom, changed out of his dirty clothes, and took a long hot shower. As he stood under the steaming water, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He may have lost Laura, but he hadn't lost himself. He still had his dignity, his self-respect, and his future, and he wasn't about to let anyone take that away from him. After his shower, Kevin dried himself off and put on clean clothes. He looked at himself in the mirror, his reflection staring back at him with determination. "I'm going to be okay," he said to himself, trying to convince his reflection as much as himself. With a deep breath, he left the bathroom and headed back into the living room. Mr. Feist was still sitting on the couch, sipping the last of his whiskey. "Feeling better?" he asked, raising an eyebrow at Kevin's refreshed appearance. "A bit," Kevin replied, mustering a small smile. "Thanks for talking some sense into me. I needed that." "No problem, son," Mr. Feist said, standing up from the couch. "Just remember, life goes on. You'll find someone else, someone who deserves you." Kevin nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope ignite within him. "I'll keep that in mind," he said, walking Mr. Feist to the door. "Thanks again for stopping by." As Kevin closed the door behind his neighbor, he felt a sense of determination fill him. He may have lost Laura, but he hadn't lost himself. and he wasn't going to let her betrayal define him. With a newfound resolve, he set about cleaning up the apartment, clearing away the empty bottles and straightening up the living room. It was a small step, but it felt like a start. The days passed, and Kevin threw himself into his work, throwing himself into his job with renewed vigor. He took on extra shifts, threw himself into new projects, and immersed himself in his work, trying to keep his mind off his broken heart. And slowly but surely, he started to feel like himself again. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when the pain of Laura's betrayal would wash over him like a tidal wave. But with each passing day, it became a little easier to bear. And as Christmas came and went, Kevin found himself looking forward to the future with renewed hope. Months turned into years, and Kevin rebuilt his life piece by piece. He made new friends, pursued new hobbies, and even started dating again. And though he never forgot Laura or the pain she had caused him, he found that he was able to forgive her, if only for his own peace of mind. And as he sat on his couch one snowy Christmas Eve, surrounded by friends and loved ones, Kevin couldn't help but feel grateful for everything he had. He may have lost Laura, but he had found something even more valuable himself. And as he raised his glass in a toast to the future, he knew that no matter what life threw his way, he would be okay, because he had survived the storm and he was stronger for it.